Oh boy. I understand this one might be a little controversial, and I get it if people disagree with me, but at least listen to what I have to say before casting judgment. Spoilers ahead if you haven't seen the last episode of Amazing Digital Circus. There's apparently a huge controversy, and a lot of people are getting very angry over differing perceptions of the character Jax. Throughout the series, he's been an aggressive, cruel person who only shows a few moments of softness towards the main character, Pomni, and displays clear pain from something unclear that happened in his past. Gooseworks has come out and stated on her Twitter account that Jax is basically a self-insert, and that the entire series was basically her exercising her demons. She clearly didn't expect it to get the growth and popularity that it did, and probably figured that it would stay confined strictly to the terminally online, queer-centric demographic that knows all of the thousands of different terms and coding specific to those circles. But it didn't. It grew past that even in the first episode. And I think they should have adjusted accordingly, but Goose really didn't. Gooseworks still seems to have expected everyone to just be able to instantly understand every subtle hint she played out, as if we're all inside her head and all think the exact same way that she does. Even in her attempts to explain, she uses terms that a lot of people probably don't know. I mean, I didn't even know what boy moding was, and I literally had a failed transition attempt myself, and have many friends who are trans, and I've been part of the queer community for a long, long time. Longer than most of the audience have even probably been alive. Yes, I'm old. Bring me my prune juice and go do your homework. What was supposed to be the giant smoking gun that made everything painfully obvious to everyone was something that only made it obvious if you are Gooseworks herself and already knew the story, basically, or were one of those people who hangs off her Twitter accounts, Blue Sky, wherever else creators post and follow every single thing they ever say, instead of just being like the majority of watchers and just watching the show itself and expecting it to tell you the story, because that's kinda what the show is for. When it comes to Jax, I didn't see this is obviously someone suffering gender dysphoria. I saw him as someone who had been through a hard life, maybe wasn't seen as masculine enough. That's how the whole backstory with his mom came across, and that's how I read him at being angry being put in a maid outfit, that he had a thin and weaker build and would be called girly by other people, and was probably really sensitive about it the way a lot of guys are when they don't have that powerful build. And he was treated as lesser because he didn't fit the traditional masculine type and was trying to force himself more into it, which of course meant aggressive and not emotional unless that emotion is anger. I didn't peg him as trans, and without the outside statements posted by Goose on other websites and not in the show, I still don't. He just seems like he was an edgy and angry at the world that was cruel to him and tried to make him feel bad about himself. You don't have to be trans for the world to not get you, or to feel like your body isn't quite right. There are multiple industries: plastic surgery, steroids, gyms, makeup, hair dye, tanning salons, hair removal or growth, literally anything cosmetic, based around exploiting people who are fine with their gender, but not how they look. A lot of people, whether they're familiar with the hardships trans people face or not, would not instantly associate somebody who feels awkward in their own skin as being transgender. I mean, pretty much every teenager ever feels awkward in their own skin. It's part of, life. And anyone who doesn't fit into the very tiny definition of standard often does a lot of things to try and fit better into that standard because of expectations that are placed on them, like women having smooth, hairless bodies or men being muscular. I think Goose fell into the trap of being so deep into telling her story that she forgot that she is telling a story to people who don't live in her head and thus don't know everything she's thinking. As far as the show itself, I don't consider things that are not in the main source material to be truly canon, and don't expect everyone to know those details. If someone has a character who is a complete jerk throughout the whole series, but has some little sob story that justifies everything posted on their personal Twitter or somewhere else, sorry, I don't consider it part of the main story, and thus, I don't care. Way too many creators now expect people to go digging through 1,000 different sources to get the full story, which is ridiculous. Gravity Falls struck a really cool balance where there was a lot of extra info in the other sources and mysteries they offered, but you didn't have to have them to get the full story and understand what happened. You just needed to see the main source material, the show itself. The rest were extras, not something that could completely change the entire story itself and how you saw the characters in it. I don't care what someone says on their Twitter or Tumblr or whatever. If the information isn't in the main source material, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't count, and I don't care, and whatever interpretations the audience has from the main source materials they are given is completely valid. If people take this to mean that Jax was just a guy who was into alternative or goth stuff and didn't get along with his mom because she blamed him for everything he was and wasn't, based on her anger towards his father, that's valid. The big secret he told her during that final fight could have been anything. That he was gay, that he missed his dad, that he wanted to be vegan, or didn't actually like the spaghetti she made for dinner. Who knows? Goose seems to have just assumed that everyone else would assume he was coming out as trans to his mother, and is shocked and offended that her life experience isn't exactly the same as everyone else's, so no, not everybody else did see it the same way. One thing that people seem to be treating as the smoking gun as well is when Ribbit puts her bow on Jax, putting it on his ear in a position that some might consider girly. To that I answer with, does clothes really define your gender that much? I mean, Ribbit was wearing it as a bow tie, which is more of a masculine thing. Does that mean Ribbit is secretly a trans man? No? Then why would Jax having it on his ear imply he's a woman? Especially when it was placed on him by someone else. Friends or lovers giving each other a piece of clothes or jewelry to wear is nothing new. Wearing their maiden's colors has been a staple of knights and warriors in fiction since back in the Arthurian days, often tied around the arm, but sometimes worn in other ways, like tying their often long hair back with their maiden's ribbon. It was done in the Arthurian legends and countless other similar tales. It was done in Redwall. It's still a common trope in stories and movies today, whether between friends or lovers. And it doesn't necessarily mean anything if the piece of clothes is feminine or worn in a feminine way. In what may be one of the weirdest adaptations of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer I've ever seen, the love interest Zoe gives Rudolph her necklace, which has a large heart pendant on it. He wears it around his neck, just like she does. A big heart pendant is something that would definitely be considered more feminine, and wearing jewelry is typically a feminine trait. Accepting the gift and wearing it the way Zoe put it on him doesn't mean he's ready to saw off his antlers and change his name to Rudina. It means he's wearing something a friend gave him. When I was in grade school, we'd do the same thing a lot of the time. Sometimes me or other girls would give our male friends something of ours to wear, and no one really cared how they wore it, unless one of the teachers had a fit about it because, well, these places were really red, and it was back in the 90s, so you can probably guess from there why they would have issues. I'd put a glittery unicorn hair clip in a male friend's hair, and he'd wear it all day, and nobody cared. Friends with long hair sometimes borrowed scrunchies from female friends to tie their hair back with, even in silly hairstyles like making it all stand up on top of their head, and no one thought anything of it. Doing something stereotypically feminine or wearing something in a stereotypically feminine way doesn't mean anything. And that kind of thinking is, well, kind of more what I'd expect from the kind of people who are trying to ban transitioning altogether, if you get my drift. Guys can like dressing cute or wearing things that are feminine without being trans, just like girls can want to wear things that are masculine and do masculine things without secretly wanting to be men. I feel like people have swung so hard into trans acceptance that they've crossed back into the territory of applying gender stereotypes to everything again. If you like pink or knitting or wearing something froofy, you must secretly want to be a girl. If you like trucks or wrestling or getting fit and strong, you must secretly want to be a man. Any sign of anyone enjoying or even just being indifferent towards participating in something that is stereotypically assigned to one gender should not be taken to mean that they belong to that gender. It doesn't mean someone is secretly a trans woman if they don't violently reject everything stereotypically feminine. People are saying he must be trans because his real self has long hair and wears a hoodie. To which I say, yeah, a lot of people do. Especially the ones who are into the goth or alternative scenes, which it seems like he is going by the dye dark hair and goth aesthetic. There are a lot of school kids who walk past my building every day heading to class, and among them I tend to see two styles. The goth or alt kids who dress just like Jax, or the ones with that broccoli hair thing going on. Both often have vapes, which is a thing, and they're both usually wearing hoodies, just of varying colors. But in neither case would I assume anyone, male or female, who dress that way is trans or gay or anything else. I just assume there's someone who likes that aesthetic, and it's as simple as that. Sometimes, people just like what they like, and there's no deeper meaning to it. Gooseworks can say that Jax is in fact trans, that he's her self-insert, all of that. But that doesn't change what the show itself actually tells us, and that it leaves it ambiguous enough that people can take any number of meanings from it, and they're all fine. It doesn't mean you're a horrible transphobic bigot because you didn't instantly think exactly the same way that someone who spent their formative years on that side of Tumblr does. You aren't a terrible person for interpreting a story through the lens of your own experiences rather than someone else's. That's the beauty of telling a story. 20 different people can read the same words and all come away with a different meaning, and they're all valid. It is okay to see something your own way and have your own view and experiences. If it wasn't, stories like Gooseworks's and people like her wouldn't be allowed to exist at all. The kind of people who tell you that you can only see things the way that they do, or you're wrong and horrible and evil, are just the same as the ones who are trying to make people like Gooseworks or anyone else who doesn't fit into their worldview not exist, even if they're hitting it from a different angle. That kind of mindset doesn't help anyone. One extreme isn't better than another. You don't have to spell everything out in a story. But if you don't, you also don't get to be angry that people apply their own meanings to what they're shown or told based on their own experience in life. That's part of telling a story. Everyone sees it through their own eyes, just a little differently, and that's okay. I'd even say that's one of the best things about stories. If we could only care about or relate to stories that are about characters that are identical to us in every way, well, nobody could really enjoy anything made by another person, since no two people have exactly the same experience or perception. My point being, I didn't see the story saying Jax was trans, and a lot of other people didn't either, though some did, and it's okay. It's okay to see it either way. It's okay, and it doesn't make anyone a bigot if they don't live in the writer's head and know everything they think. It's okay to just see the show itself, or read the book or watch the movie without hunting down every last scrap of information ever posted, to make sure you're understanding it the way the creator intended it. It's okay to interpret things your own way and just enjoy a show as a show. It's okay to not pick up a clue the same way someone else might. Viewing the world differently and having different interpretations of the same thing is part of what makes storytelling fun and interesting. Never feel bad from seeing a story differently than how someone else did. If we all saw things the exact same way all the time and had the exact same thoughts and feelings, life would be really, really boring, and stories and art or creativity of any kind probably wouldn't exist at all. Thank you all for joining me. I'm still working on the upcoming project I mentioned before, and a lot of life stuff is going on right now, so my post may be a little bit late, but I do intend to do my best to make sure I have at least one video a week posted here. Be safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one.